Only very recently, because I had this feeling that I wanted to go back to Peru, where so much happened to me in February 1991. Incredible experiences, paranormal experiences you would call them. I've just had this feeling for like 6 months or even a bit more, I need to go back to Peru. And I was going to go back on my own. And then some organizers in Australia who I worked with last year said, well, why don't you get some other people to come with you, and we'll make it an event that more people can share. So because of that, my mind has actually been turning even more recently to what is this force? Mm-hmm. And I do think that at some point I am going to get very clear confirmation of what it is. I don't see it, you see. I don't see it as like an extraterrestrials in some ship or something like that. I see it as a level of awareness, a level of consciousness. And in the end, while we perceive ourselves as so-called humans and our name and job and income bracket and all the rest of it, we are all, in the end, if we open to it, we are all higher realms of consciousness. So in the end, because everything is one, at some level we're communicating with ourselves. The question is, how expanded is that level of self that you are communicating with? Because if you shut out the higher levels of self, you get pulled into mind-body, which is basically filtering and decoding and perceiving everything through the five senses, which is a very, very low, narrow, incredibly limited range of perception. And that's where most humans have been and still are, because the system has been structured to put them there. And this is a key reason why when people who, throughout history, whoever they are, who have opened their mind to a greater consciousness, not that it means that they're special and messiahs. It just means they've opened their mind to what anyone can, higher levels of awareness. So your point of observation of everything changes. That's why they have been ridiculed or condemned or dismissed throughout history, because what they are perceiving, what they are decoding, is not being perceived and decoded by the vast majority of people who are still in that closed-minded state. And thus it's like a person talking one language trying to understand a person talking another language. They just don't understand what you're talking about, mate. But what's interesting is as this collective awakening it happens, people are going through the same process. And so more and more people are starting to look at what I'm saying because they're starting to decode the same stuff, and therefore it's starting to make sense to them.
Could you tell us about any of these paranormal experiences? Something that happened recently, for example.
Well, what happened in Peru was a life-changing experience, and funnily enough, the organizers of the return to Peru, a group of people, they've organized it so that my 60th birthday will be celebrated, if you like, in a stone circle in Peru, and it's for a particular reason. After the Betty Shine experience, the old life fell apart. Very soon after, within like 2 months, maybe slightly more, of the meeting with Betty Shine, the BBC announced they weren't going to renew my contract, so I was out of work. And I could have looked for other media work, but this was telling me, no, there's another road now. And so I didn't. And I spent 1990 basically walking around going, what's happening to me? Trying to get together what was happening and where I was supposed to go, and it was bewildering, really. But in that period, I put together a book which I called Truth Vibrations. After this vibrational change, I was told was going to come, and demonstrably it's here now. And then when that went off to the printers in late 1990, I started getting this constant recurring feeling, I need to go to Peru. Now, I'd never thought about Peru before. I've seen the football team play in the World Cup, and that was the end of my experience of Peru. But it was so powerful. And by now, and this was a big thing that happened after the Betty Shine experience, was that my intuition was now governor. When this said, what you doing? What you doing? And this said, you've got to do this, you need to do this, I need to do this. Then this would always decide action and direction. And that's been the same to this minute. Because this intuition knows, this thinks and tries to work it out. This knows because it's accessing a much more expanded level of awareness and consciousness than this is. And so when you look at people, so many people, because of the fear, it's interesting, as we keep talking, all these different strands come together and connect. The fear of what other people think gets people to deny and suppress their intuitive knowing. I just know I've got to do this. I just know I need to go there. You can't do that. What will people think if you? And so again, being cleared out of that fear of what other people thought allowed this to take center stage in the direction of my life. And so the intuition said go to Peru. So purely on that, I got on a plane to Peru in February 1991. And I had no idea why I was going, except I knew I had to go. This whole synchronistic series of events happened. For instance, when I got to Cusco, I'm now in the hotel, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, what now? And someone had said to me, if you need any help in Peru, this is a friend of mine, give them a call. So I called them, and because they worked in a local travel agency in Cusco. And they said, well, come and see me. And I went to see them, and they said they then got on the phone organizing all my travel, Machu Picchu and all this stuff for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks. She said, you need a guide. So I've got just the one, picks up the phone, talking in a language I didn't understand, and then I went round to see this guy the next morning, and we were going to go off, and he was going to take me around Peru. He was a professional Peruvian guide, with all the Peruvian clothes you'd expect. And I went round to his home to join up with him the next morning, and I knocked the door, there was no answer, and I pushed the door and it opened, so I walked into, I'm looking, and there he is, he's not in bed, he's asleep on the floor with his hat on and his blanket, and he looks up at me and he said, not hello, how are you, nice to meet you, he said, do you have any dreams last night? I'm thinking, what? And fully enough, I'd had this absolutely vivid dream the night before that one of these two middle front teeth had fallen out. So I told him. He said, is your father or grandfather still alive? I said, yeah, my father is, yeah. I said, why? He said, because that's often symbolic of your grandfather or father dying. Next time I got a phone call to England, a few days later, the father had died back in England. In fact, the funeral had happened before I even realized he died, because once you get into the wilds of Peru, the communication with Britain, forget it. And well, in those days anyway. And so we go around, we go to Machu Picchu, we go to all these places, and eventually we come to a place called Puno in southern Peru. So we're driving away, and about 3 minutes down the road, I'm looking out the window and I'm just kind of daydreaming, as I do a lot. And then I see this hill, mound, whatever you want to call it, to my right, and I'm looking at it. And as I was looking at it, all I could hear in my head was, come to me, come to me, come to me, come to me. And you think that mound's talking to me, this is crazy. What's happening to my life? So I said to the guy, could you stop the bus? I want to go up that mound. I said, I won't be long. And I was quite a time, actually. And I walked up the mound to the top, and I couldn't see it from the road. But when I got to the top, there was this big stone circle, which I'm going to go back to. And I walked, it's like, whoa, stone circle. And I walked to the center of the circle, and I got the feet again. I got like the burning in the feet, like some magnetism was pulling my feet down, like in the news bookshop in Ryde down the road here. And then two very clear, again, strong thoughts, voice, whatever you like, went through my head. The first one said, they'll be talking about this 100 years from now. And the second one was, it will be over when you feel the rain. And I'm looking up at a cloudless Peruvian sky with a piercing sun, and I'm hearing in my head, my mind, it will be over when you feel the rain. It just seemed to be the conclusion, the climax of the ludicrous direction my life had gone. There's no way. What do you mean it'll be over when you feel the rain? Anyway, what I was feeling as I was standing there was like a drill going into the top of my head, through my body into the ground. I was feeling another flow coming back and out the top of my head. And then my arms went out at 45 degrees, like that, without me making any decision to do it. And you can't hold your shoulders like that, I can't anyway, for very long before they start to ache. But mine were like that for, must have been, 40 minutes, maybe more, while this process situation happened to me, because this energy coming through me got more and more powerful until I was literally shaking, standing there. And I was going in and out of like my conscious mind, like you drive a car and you can't remember where the last 2 miles went because you've been in the subconscious level. And then one of these times when I came back to my conscious mind, awareness if you like, I realized that over the distant mountains, and it was quite a long way away, there was this light grey mist. And it got darker very quickly. And I thought, it's raining. And over the next, I don't know what it must have been, half an hour, this rainstorm came out of the mountains. And the weather forecasters talk about weather fronts. Well, this was a weather front. The front of this storm was dead straight, like someone had drawn it with a ruler, and it was coming towards me. It covered the sun eventually, and it was all happening ridiculously quickly. And I was looking up as it got closer, and these billowing clouds like dry ice on a stage, and I could see faces in them and stuff like that. And eventually, I'm looking at this wall of stair rod rain coming towards me. I mean, if you did it as special effects in a movie, people would say that's ridiculous, that's just far-fetched. It happened. And as it came towards me, I'm now absolutely at the peak of this energetic, whatever the heck was going on. And then the rain hit me, and I was instantly soaked because it was so, immense, the wall of rain. And as it hit me, all this energy stopped. And my life was never the same again.